Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Peraza. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm so grateful that you're all here able to join us today for this event closing out Women's History Month. And before introducing our lovely panelists, I just want to mention that our chat and our Q&A are both open for any comments or any questions that you have. It can also be used to just hype us up if you are inspired to do that. But I do want to encourage you all to use it at any point during this conversation because we want to hear from you, and we'd love for you to get the most out of this, and would love for this to be interactive. So feel free to chime in the chat or in the question box at any point. And okay, so with us here today are a few of my incredible colleagues. We have Tamari Attar, who is the Senior Director of Product Development, Yesenia Flores, our Senior Retail Manager, and Andrea Trejo, who is our Influencer Marketing Associate. And to begin, I would just love for you all to share a bit of your background and how you landed in the beauty industry. So maybe we start with Tamari.
Cool. I'll try to keep it short. It wasn't an easy road, but I like to think my beauty career started when I was 15. I worked at The Body Shop. It's a British company. They're still around, but they've had a lot of lives. And I worked at the Beverly Center, which is just down the road from the Verse office, which is very ironic. And I was in retail there, and that I really learned a lot about products and formulas. And so that was super exciting. And then when I went to college, I majored in TV production, and I wanted to produce fashion and beauty content, there was no YouTube, which if you can imagine a world without YouTube, I can't. And so I did 6 internships while I was in college, and I worked at a lot of different major networks and PR firms, and one of them was at the Style Network, which was E! Networks. And so I built some contacts and soft skills and just learned how to work in a professional setting, which helped me as I got my first full time after graduating. And then I worked at a boutique marketing firm, which led to another job in fashion buying and personal shopping in clothing. And then that led me to Marie Claire magazine, which I feel like was the pinnacle of me kind of switching and kind of going into beauty. I took a major pay cut to work there just because I knew it would be a great place to make contacts, to get more exposure. I worked on the West Coast in advertising and marketing. And my boss, my second boss there, she came from Glamour magazine, and she sent my resume to Murad Skincare for a marketing position because she wanted to see me grow and excel in my career. And I didn't know what I was getting into when I went to Murad. I thought it was just more of a traditional marketing role, but it was product marketing, which was, product development and working on all the product assets, collateral for the global team. And so I was very green. I was lucky to have a boss that was a mentor to me. She was very patient. I learned how to make products. I didn't know this job existed prior. And then that kind of started my trajectory into product development. So I went on to work at Hatch Beauty, working on multiple brands. Then I went to Dermalogica, managing product launches, and now I'm at Verse. So that's the very condensed but long story.
You've done it all.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of hard work and sacrifice, but I'm excited about where I am now, obviously. Yeah.
Yesenia, you want to share a little bit about your story?
Sure. So my love for beauty started when I was, I don't know how old, so young, playing with my mom's makeup. So when I was getting ready to graduate high school and, everybody's trying to figure out, which colleges you're going to apply to. I really had no idea, like nothing was speaking to me, nothing was calling out to me of, being passionate about something. But then one day we had a bunch of colleges go to my school, and FITM was one of the schools that came by, and they were telling us a little bit about this new beauty program that they were starting. So I know I'm dating myself by saying that, but so that really called to me. I really loved makeup and fragrance and skincare at that point. So I just felt like, that was the direction that I needed to go in. So after high school, I went to FITM. And after 2 years, I graduated with my associate's degree. And while I was at FITM, I started working at Sephora. And again, I'm going to age myself. At the time, I believe there was only 3 Sephoras in Southern California. We used to wear our hair back, red lipstick, black glove. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But spent some time at Sephora, I believe about 2 or 3 years, starting out as a seasonal consultant, on the floor, helping clients, with makeup and skincare. And I knew at that time, when brands would come in and do the training and so forth, I started really wanting to get involved in the background of brands. I thought it was very cool, on how brands develop products, how they bring the products to life and how they bring the products in store. So during my time at Sephora, I started looking into different brands and sending out letters, to HR, seeing, where there was opportunity for employment. And going back to FITM and using the resources there, I was able to get a job at Boscia Skincare as their sales and marketing coordinator. And that was when Boscia was only at Nordstrom and Henry Bendel. So when I started there, it was a very, very small brand. And while I was there, we went into Bath and Body Works, expanded within Nordstrom and then into Sephora. So I was able to be there for their growth, which was very exciting. And then from there, I went to Markwin's Beauty Brands and I was working under the CK Calvin Klein Beauty brand. So helping to launch that brand into Macy's, being the sales and marketing coordinator there, and also working within the collections business. I don't know if everybody remembers, the big gift sets with tons of eyeshadows and lipsticks. So that was part of my role there. So that was very fun. And then as the CK Calvin Klein Beauty brand launched and was in store for some time, unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as the company wanted. So they discontinued the brand. And with that discontinuation, I was laid off from there. So I didn't know at that point what I wanted to do. And so I had just gotten married. So I knew I was going to start a family. So I felt like it was time for me to get my esthetician's license. So as I got pregnant and life happened, had the baby, life happened again. I had to take a year off from working to dedicate my time to my daughter. And then eventually went into the restaurant industry to help out my husband's family. So I did that for 2 years. And then I knew I really just wanted to get back into beauty. So I worked as an esthetician at Massage Envy for some time. But I knew at that time I loved, providing the service of facials and aesthetics to clients, but I knew I wanted to get back into the marketing portion of it and being creative within the industry. So from there, I went to American International Industries and I worked under one of their professional nail brands called IBD. So did some brand marketing there, product development. From there, I went back to Markwin's under Wet n Wild, and I was their international marketing manager for some time, and then went over to the domestic team. And then after about almost 4 years there, I found myself at Versed. So, and here I am as the senior retail manager.
Amazing. I'm sensing like a theme here, like a marketing to whatever you actually want to do pipeline. But it's really cool to hear that, we all didn't necessarily start in the beauty industry or in the role that we are now in. So I hope that inspires anyone who is not quite sure where they want to see themselves in the future to know that you can always change your path. Andrea, let's hear a little bit about your story.
Oh my gosh, how do I even follow that up? You guys have such amazing careers, but I actually got my undergrad in communications and public relations. I always knew that I wanted to do something along the lines of public relations. I think at the time I wanted to do like international public relations, like something along those lines. But I ended up getting this internship with back, even now, Pinterest, where you would do like the how-to tutorials. Like you would take pictures and you would do like how to do a red lip without like like getting it like all over your face, or getting, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like that sock, like getting a sock and then cutting it and then doing that bun where you would do like that big sock bun. Okay, I was doing those tutorials for this magazine that was in Pinterest, and that just sparked my love for social media and just content creation and what you can reach and the niche that you can do of just one, connecting, but also creating beautiful content. So I did a couple of internships with PR companies. I ended up landing a couple of jobs with PR companies. One of my big ones was with H&M, which is a huge Hispanic PR agency. And I did influencer marketing with them and relationships, just doing accounts with like Amazon, Universal, doing movie premieres, and just connecting that very niche of Latinos, content creators and influencers back into campaigns that were needed to connect to the consumer. And then ended up getting my master's from USC, so fight on, for digital social media, because back in, when I was getting my undergrad, I wanted to do something with digital media, but there was nothing at the time. There was more like coding, and it was more on like the computer, like engineer side. There was no like digital media wise. So ended up finding this program. I loved it. I knew that that's where I wanted to head my career to. I feel like we spent so much time on our phones and on social media that I wanted to learn about it, and I wanted to make a career about it because I knew it wasn't going to go away anytime soon. So yeah, then I was landed at Verse as influencer marketing. So here I am. Very short and sweet, but definitely a journey.
Thank you for sharing that. So some of the folks that have joined us here today are looking to get started in the beauty industry. So maybe Yesenia, we start with you. Do you have any advice for them to get their foot in the door? It sounds like you were sending letters to HR. So yeah, any advice that you have for folks that aren't quite in the industry but want to get in there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the advantage that there is right now is we have social media platforms like LinkedIn now. I would suggest, really utilize that platform and start trying to connect with different people in the industry, send them messages and let them know, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat? I sometimes get those messages from people interested in the industry, and, I'm more than willing to hop on the phone and, talk to them for a little bit and answer any questions that they have. And I would say, know your passion, be persistent, know that starting at the bottom is not a bad thing. Starting at the bottom could give you some great experience. And like you said, Jamie, like sometimes you don't know what you're going to end up with. And, be open-minded, I think is very important. Because maybe you're thinking that you want to do social media and you start out with a company and you do social media, but I would suggest, talk to your other team members in the other departments, and maybe something will spark more of an interest to you. And be open-minded to what else there is in the industry, because I mean, we're constantly evolving, and I mean, there's great opportunity within the whole industry. So I would say just be persistent and be open-minded and utilize your resources.
That's good advice. Do any panelists have anything to add here?
I would say honestly.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Andrea.
To Mary. Go ahead. I would say honestly, apply for the job. Like sometimes we see job openings and we read the description and there's a couple maybe bullet points that we're unsure of, or we feel like I don't know how to do that, or we cut ourselves short, just apply for the job. Apply for the job, because you never know where the opportunity is going to take you. Even if you land an interview and then, the job is not offered to you, at least you got a good practice of an interview and you got to polish your interview skills. So that way, when the next job or the next interview comes, you've practiced enough and you kind of free yourself on saying like, hey, like I'm applying for this job, I'm going for it. Always bet on yourself. You never know where the opportunity can take you, but don't cut yourself back before even applying for it. I remember back in like, I ended up landing a interview with a PR agency and applied for a completely different job. And after my interview, after me speaking like where I was passionate and what I wanted to do for my future, I ended up being hired by the PR agency, but given a completely different job, more of so the one that aligned to me. So that's why I'm saying apply for the job, because the opportunities are always there.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what everyone's saying, especially about being willing to start over if you know you're switching industries and pay your dues, like I like to say. One of our team members, Nicole, she's our product development coordinator. She actually met Melanie, our president, at BeautyCon and kept in contact, was persistent. Then she connected to me, kept in contact, and we had conversations. And so naturally, when I think of a role open, she's one of the people I think, okay, here, you might want to apply for this. So I think, being persistent, really showing that it's something that you really want will take you a long way. And also, I love, Yesenia, your story about FITM, because I also considered going to FITM. I didn't, but I ended up teaching there later. And I've consistently gone back to FITM and saying, hey, do you have, people that are available for roles? I know there's other schools. I think FIT, Parsons might have beauty programs, but if you're going the school route, like try to get some real hands-on experience in the industry that you want to work in. So that would be my 2 cents as well.
That's great. Apply for the job, guys. Just do it. Go for it. Don't count yourself out before anyone else does. So next question, we have quite a range of representation here, product development, retail, influencer marketing. Each of you has a different area of expertise. Are there any skill sets that you think are necessary or particularly important in your field of work?
I can go. I think for the role that I am, any type of product development, product marketing, where you're actually like creating the product, I like to say you need to be both equally left and right brained, because the left brain will be the very cognitive part, the math, the cost of goods, knowing if you're profitable, the project management, problem solving, people management, strategy. There's a lot of, we joke on our team that we're problem development. It's probably not the most positive joke, but because, we create these products and we create all these problems that we have to solve. So there's a lot of that energy that takes a lot of, critical thinking. But then obviously there's the right creative side that's more of like the formula development, the storytelling, the creative input, packaging. So I think having both of those skills will take you a long way when you're working in a product development type of role.
Yeah, I would say for influencer marketing, because it's creating relationships and finding that content creator influencer where you want to build a campaign with. It's definitely building relationships. It shouldn't just be a contract or a business transaction. It's definitely cultivating those seeds and going on coffee dates or a Zoom coffee date and creating that network where you create brand love, but also a good networking around yourself for your career, but also for the brand. And it comes off more organic when you work with influencers that you truly have a good relationship with. So definitely putting yourself out there and networking.
For retail, I think not only for retail, but for any segment in the industry, most importantly, you have to be organized. Organized, especially, in retail, we're working with different retailers. So trying to keep all the requests organized and straight, I think that's very important. And I think a very important skill set within the retail team is knowing how to be collaborative. Not only with the retailers and the buyers, but also within the organization that you're working with. Especially in retail, I work with different the various departments within our organization. So I work with Tamari's team, I work with Andrea's team, I work with operations, with brand marketing. So knowing how to be collaborative and respectable and personable with all your team members, I think is very crucial, because your success in store is not only due to your success, it's because working as a team is creating the brand success in store.
Great. We have one person in the chat, Jacqueline, who says, I'm trying to be a beauty writer. Should I start by writing articles on a personal blog? I can't seem to get my foot in the door with freelance, even though I'm a professional copywriter. Jacqueline, please feel free to message me on LinkedIn. Verse is constantly looking for guest writers, and most beauty brands do have blogs on their professional on their website. So you can always reach out to them directly and say like, hey, I have this idea for a piece, or actually already write the piece and send it over. And I think that you could probably get your stuff out there. Having a personal blog where you can show your work, or a website that you have, some of your work on, is always great to, kind of be able to send that off to people. So yeah, let's connect. And we're actually hiring for copywriters. So there's that too. Okay, switching gears for a little bit here. I want to talk about imposter syndrome. I saw someone bring that up in the chat. Imposter syndrome is a feeling of, it's a feeling that's experienced by many, including successful and intelligent professionals. And it's the feeling of not deserving your accomplishments, of somehow having faked your way to success. So this is a common phenomenon. Is there anything that you can share with us about how you deal with this when a moment of imposter syndrome tries to creep in to disturb your confidence? And for anyone who's willing to share in the chat as well, feel free to sound off there.
I'll go. I can go. Oh my gosh, imposter syndrome. That's like my biggest enemy, my self-enemy. I remember the first time I felt imposter syndrome very heavy was actually my first day at Verse. We were having this team meeting. It was like a Monday, our weekly meeting. And Melanie, the president of Verse, was introducing me. And she just like casually dropped the fact that they had over 800 applicants for my position. And instead of me feeling proud and like feeling deserving of it, I unraveled into this imposter syndrome feeling of, oh my God, do I deserve to be here? Did I fool all these people to give me this job that I don't even deserve, like this position that I don't deserve? And I think it's just changing your narrative and the way that you think about it. I remember speaking to my mom about it, and she gave me such a powerful advice, very simple, but she's just like, step into your power. So always drown the doubt with stepping into your power. And this metaphor that it's like, you're getting ready for a race, right? You've woken up at 5 a.m, you've been training, you're eating your veggies, you're doing everything that you can. Then race day comes and you win, and it's that time for you to step on the podium and receive your gold medal, but you're too shy to step on that podium because you feel like, I don't deserve this. You've done the work, you put in the hours, you deserve it. You are more than deserving of it. So definitely do not take that away from you. Do not let that doubt, that self-sabotage steal that deserving feeling, that proudness feeling away, because you've done the work. Like, and even if you step into a room where, you may be the only one of color, or you may be the minority in the room or at the table or at a meeting, know that you are confident and that you are bringing a different view, a different perspective. You are unique in what you are bringing, and you are deserving to be there. So definitely step into your power and don't feed into that doubt, because it's definitely killer.
Love your mom for saying that.
I know, so wise.
Any other advice here?
Yeah, I know so much of what I've experienced has been connected, obviously, through, I think everything links back to your childhood. So I definitely think therapy is something everyone should be doing if you're struggling with any type of self-confidence, knowing how to show up, because you'd be surprised there's a direct connection of how you show up in the workplace to that. Again, I think knowing that you're there for a reason. I think it's important to have a personal mission in your life and for everything that you do and why you're there. And I remember, I love that you brought your mom into this, Andrea, because my dad, I remember asking him, because he's an amazing public speaker. And I asked him one day, like, because I was having to do that a lot on some of my past jobs. And I was like, well, how do you do it? Like, I hate public speaking. And he said, because I have a message to get out. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, it's not always about you. It's about your mission, your message. Like, you're inspiring someone else, you're helping someone else. Like, so I always try to keep that in mind, that nothing that I do is really for me. It's for like the next generation. It's to like bring someone along. And like, especially as a Black woman, I'm really like big on that. So I think, remembering my why helps a lot with those moments.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice, Mary. And I love that you mentioned therapy, because I think it's so important to get away from the stigma that's for, not for everyone, because it truly is. Yesenia, you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of share Andrea's experience. When I got hired at first, I was like, oh my God, can I really do this job? I was really having a lot of self-doubt before I started at first. And for me, I think what got me through it was I went to my support system. I went to my husband. And, I've been blessed that he's been very supportive along my whole career journey. And, just talking to him about my feelings and my doubt. And, he just, didn't slap me, but, he was like, snap out of it. You could do this. And, this is what you've been wanting. And this is what you've been working hard for. And I have 3 girls, and he's just like, you need to be a role model for them, and you could do this and be strong and have confidence. He's like, I know you could do it. And, went to my mom as well. And I told her my doubts, and, she was supportive as well. And, just giving me a boost in my confidence that I needed. So I really suggest, don't keep anything to yourself. Just use your support system, use whoever that you have, a mentor, people at work, people within your family, your friends, use them, because they'll really just bring up your confidence, because they know you best.
That's great. We love a life cheerleader, I would say, because sometimes we need someone to remind us, right, of exactly who we are. So thank you for that advice. I really appreciate all of your perspectives here. Some of us grew up with the notion that keeping our heads down, doing the hard work, and staying in our lane is what is needed to succeed. And we're almost encouraged to make ourselves smaller to avoid ruffling feathers or shaking the table. So do any of you have a story to share about a time when you had to use your voice to advocate for yourself in the workplace?
I definitely had to.
Let's hear
And yeah, so in my last role, actually, I had to, the only Black woman on the product team, the one of 2 in the entire marketing department, pretty large department. And there was a situation where I was like watching people get promoted by our boss who didn't hire us. And I knew I was deserving of that. And I was happy for them, but I felt like I was almost being singled out. It wasn't an easy conversation for me to have. It took a lot of courage to, schedule that meeting and kind of bring up and kind of show her, my background and what I had accomplished. And I felt very undervalued. I felt very underappreciated. It wasn't a good conversation. I left in tears. And a few months later, I actually ended up going to head PD for Verst. But I learned a lot in that situation, that you need to speak up even if it's going to be uncomfortable, because it did get things moving at the company. It did start conversations with the CEO and the VP. And so I think just dropping that seed, and this is pre George Floyd, pre anyone talking about race, I think just kind of getting those, dropping those gems kind of helped. And who knows what seeds I planted might help someone in the future, right? So I think I would do it again. It wasn't a good experience in terms of like me leaving and feeling good about that conversation. But I think it's always important to advocate for yourself, because no one else is going to. So like, you need to do it.
That's great. I'm so glad that you stood up for yourself because I know it's not always easy.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific story, I think, for myself, but I think more of so like my community, I'm huge on working with just different, background, ethnicity, shapes, colors, everything type of content creators and influencers. And that's because I truly believe that the demand for content has changed. People want to see people like them. They want to hear stories like their stories. And I think so they can identify with them. And I think that's where mainstream media misses that. And brands have a huge opportunity in creating campaigns where they can bring in influencers and content creators, and showcase those stories or show somebody, hey, like that person looks like me. And they're working with just different, influencers. And so I think like I was reading like this report and listening to this podcast is like Latina to Latina, and they said this like fact that just like stuck with me, and it was that during the pandemic, Hispanic women actually overspent 13 more than your average buyer. So they actually like they purchase a lot more in self-care and beauty. So that in itself is your prime consumer. We should be doing campaigns that highlight Latinas, and not just, your beautiful light-skinned Latina, but your Afro Latina, your Latina that is not often showcased. But if that is your biggest consumer, brands are missing out if they're not backing up campaigns, if they're not making products that not just resonate with you, but you see yourself in them. So I think like brands like Fenty Beauty have done amazing when they like first came out with the range of like the different foundations, and they had tons of colors, and people of color felt seen. Women that most likely were mixing foundations felt seen, and that's the route where it's going. The demand is completely different. It's shifting, and we need to just shift with that and be smart about it and back up our consumers and not just say, give me your money. It's more of, so let's have a connection, and I see you as a consumer and I appreciate you. So definitely it's very important for me to push content creators and influencers that are not just the same cookie cutter influencers that you see all the time, but for us to work with, just different diversities. So definitely that.
Thanks, Andrea. One of the things I always thought about representation was like, oh, I want to be the representation. I want to see myself in, marketing, ads, all those things. And I realized more recently that it's important for me to see that, but I think it's also important for everyone else to see that we're not all the same. I think it's so important for people who are not like me to see someone like me, and learn to appreciate, the diversity and beauty. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have one final question before we move into our audience questions. I see a few coming in, and I will definitely address them. But the last question I have is, far too often, unfortunately, people and women in particular are shamed for their failures. Do any of you have a story to share about failing upwards, or in other words, advancing your career despite your failures?
I'll go first. I was really thinking about this question, and I was having a really hard time trying to figure out what I was going to say, because unfortunately, there's been more than a few failures that I could talk about. But, I believe that you have to get through those failures in order to succeed. But what I did want to talk about, because as women, and I think, looking to pursuing a career, we often feel that we either need to choose between having a family and having a career. And most often we feel like we can't do both of those things. And, I'm here to say that you can. I have 3 beautiful little girls. And there's been many times that I've either felt like I was failing as a mom, failing as a wife, failing as an employee. But having those 3 little humans looking up to me, just has kept me going. And there have been times that, when, like for instance, my second baby was born, and, she was barely a year old, and there was a job opportunity presented to me that could have advanced my career a bit sooner than, that I was looking for. But knowing that she was so young and, the job opportunity, I would have had to been in traffic for an hour and a half, each way. And knowing those obstacles for that job opportunity, I had to decline the opportunity. And I had to just know, like, okay, I'm going to stay where I'm at for now, because I do have a baby at home and I just need to keep going and eventually I'll get there. So at that time, I felt like I really failed myself, because, I couldn't get to the place where I wanted to at that time. And, I didn't know if I was failing my girls because I knew, I wouldn't be there for them 100%. I was taking time to grow my career. But eventually, I'm looking at as what I'm doing as being a role model to them. And I hope that one day they appreciate, what I'm doing right now, because I'm doing this for them. Trying to show them that we can do it all and, be who you want to be. There is sacrifice along the way. But eventually you'll get there, and eventually, your failures will turn into success.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I think the biggest advice that I've gotten is change your narrative, and just seeing more of rejection into redirection, instead of just focusing on the failures and the rejection of it. Change the narrative of it and just know that it's redirecting you into a bigger opportunity, and just kind of keeping that mindset and that momentum of like, okay, maybe this wasn't for me, but there's something bigger and there's always a bigger opportunity, and it's redirecting me to that, and I need to be open to that. Because sometimes I feel like we kind of get stuck in that mood of okay, well, I failed at this, so then it's gonna go wrong, and it just trickles back into us not believing in ourselves. But if we just stop that and kind of just redirect the narrative that we're telling ourselves and say, okay, well, I'm going to redirect this into a bigger opportunity, and I know it's coming, and just keep pushing forward. That's the best advice I could give.
That's great. When one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah. Along those same lines, I was gonna say one of my models is if not this, better. Like if this doesn't work out, then something better is coming for me. And even the tough times, because I've had a lot of jobs and I've had a lot of, both positive and difficult experiences, a lot from women in the workplace, even as a very young green person. And I think, I've experienced a lot of what I consider to be bad leadership. And if anything, it just made me clear on the type of leader I wanted to become. So it just, it helped me. I keep that in mind as I move forward. Like I can really empathize with people that are just starting out and very excited and just wanting a foot in the door, and being very precious about what I say to them, how I welcome them in, because you're shaping how they're going to grow within the industry. So I'm very conscious of that. And I'm very passionate about leadership. And so I think, I wouldn't consider anything a failure. I just think it's more of a clarity for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So we're going to move into some of the audience questions. I know that you dropped a few in the chat, which I'll address. If any of you have other questions, feel free to use the Q&A little section so that I can easily address it. But the first question, and for panelists, if you guys just want to jump in, this question is from Gabby. I have a lot of experience with influencer marketing, used to be PR for Mac and then transitioned to freelance influencer marketing for brands. What skills or tips can you give to get back in a company? Hard and soft skills that I need.
Gabby, let's connect. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Definitely, I would say back to the first point that I made is networking, and definitely I think it's that, what is it, the 6 degrees of separation, you're also six or fewer social connections away, but definitely send a message on LinkedIn, connect. Let's see where you kind of want to head to, and then I'll do my best to connect you to whoever that person is. And if that person is me, then we can definitely connect. And Verse is hiring right now, so definitely let's connect.
Thanks, Andrea. What do you, this question is from Priscilla. What do you recommend for a beauty company to consider pitching to retail? When is it the right time, and how to begin the process? So maybe this question's a little bit for Yesenia.
Yeah, so I mean, pitching to retailers, it's very it's a long process. But I would say, you know, start out if you feel that your business is in a good position to handle the amount that they would be ordering. I would say, you know, start networking and start finding out how to get meetings with buyers. I think that's first and foremost where you need to start. And then from there, you know, if you have the chance to meet with a buyer, you know, really speak your heart out and be passionate about what you're presenting, and tell them about your brand, tell them how it's different, tell them how it's unique, tell them how it's going to be successful in their retailer space, because there's so much competition, but buyers do want to hear what makes you unique, what makes your brand different. And that once you have that, you know, brand statement ironed out, you know, talk about it passionately, and that will spark someone's interest. And you know, don't think, you know, yeah, maybe you want to go into Target or to Ulta at first, but maybe sometimes that's not the right path for your brand. Maybe you need to start out a little bit smaller in some boutique stores, and, you know, just get the brand out there and, you know, create awareness of the brand. And then eventually you'll get to the space where you want to get to.
Thanks, Yesenia. This question is from Demi. Do any of you have advice on applying for social media influencer marketing positions in the beauty industry that may be in a totally different city or state? For example, LA. I live all the way in Indiana, and most of the jobs I want to apply for are based in LA. I plan to move to LA anyway, but should I move first before applying? And Jacqueline also had something to add there. Are beauty brands becoming more open to remote work? I'm also finding a barrier because I don't live in California or New York.
Apply for the job. We work remote, so I would say apply for the job. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot, even if everything in life, it's like negotiable. And I think even if you go in there and you kill the interview and then committed to that journey, because you don't want to move and then hate the job. You want to be able to also love what you're doing. So I would say apply for the job and negotiate during your interview, and just say that those are your plans. And if they're willing to work with you, you'll know what type of brand that is if the brand is willing to work with you. And if they're not, then that's definitely not anywhere you want to work at, because if they're not willing to compromise at the beginning for that, and you're bringing so much to the table, then that's definitely not the route you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's no better time than now to try to get a remote job. Like, this was unheard of 2 years ago, so apply. And also, like, I know sometimes we talk like, you know, LA, New York, Chicago, wherever the major cities are, but like, if you want to do social media where you are, maybe find like a small business and ask them if you can like run their social channel, like do something. You have to do something, meet yourself where you are. And just, I think those little small efforts, you know, create momentum. And, you know, that's something you can put on your resume. So, you know, we all have to start somewhere. I know it's hard when you're not in the location, but you can find and create an opportunity for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I think, like you said, Tamari, you know, now is the time. We're seeing a lot of hybrid roles. So sometimes it may be that you don't have to directly live in that, you know, place where the headquarters are, but you must be willing to fly out there once a month or once a quarter, whatever it is. So again, to Andrea's advice, like just apply and go for it. And I think there's room to figure out like the living situation and kind of all those things once you have that opportunity. Okay, we have a question from Instagram. What advice do you know What advice do you have for someone looking to increase their network in the beauty industry?
Network as in
Yeah,
a
like
following network? Yeah.
I
I'm
think,
assuming networking, right? Like your
yeah, I
contacts.
think just networking and how to probably get to know people in the beauty industry.
Don't
You
be
know
Yeah,
shy.
what?
don't
I
be,
think you said don't be
Don't be
shy.
shy.
yeah,
Just reach out.
yeah. Don't be afraid to like even like direct message people. Like just, I mean, what's the worst thing that they could happen is like ignore your message, but you never know. I've connected with people by just like messaging them, and then we've made a connection because of that. And I feel like just going for it. LinkedIn messages sometimes get like saturated, but even just like sending that direct message, don't be afraid. Like I feel like most of us are like, oh my God, I'm gonna bother them or I'm gonna look dumb, or just take the chance. The worst thing that they could happen is like they'll ignore the message. But the best thing that could happen is you make a connection. So
To add
Along
to
those
that, I would
lines
also
too.
say, oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Jamie. Oh, I was just going to add to be authentic and also offer something because, like, it's good to reach out, but like maybe offer something or like if you, we all have something to give, right? And so I think when you're reaching out, especially someone that's like very busy and you want to be mindful of their time, like make it something that's engaging, or say, hey, I'm interested in doing this versus I just need something from you. Because I also think the tone of the message will influence whether they respond or not. So that's just
yeah.
another thing to add.
That's great. And also join these like webinars that are free and, you know, are meant to kind of help you get there. Like just now you have 4 new connections here, or 5, including Emily. And there's also just like BeautyCon, some other things that are really made for networking and getting yourself out there. So, you know, if you can find out which ones are of interest to you and attend those, whether it's remotely or in person, that often gives you a lot of time to connect with people in the industry. So you could do that as well. Okay, we have 2 final questions that maybe we could have just one person answer so that we can get through them. The first one is, do you have advice for someone who's trying to transition into the industry from somewhere completely different? I want to transition into the industry, ideally through PD or marketing, but I'm in higher education right now.
I think.
Yeah.
No, I was like, that's all you, Tamari.
I know.
Oh yeah, I told the story about Nicole. Nicole on our team worked like in entertainment. I think she worked on the East Coast for like events and ticketing. Nicole, if you're on and I got that wrong, I'm sorry. Put in the chat what you were doing. But again, she met Melanie, our president, at BeautyCon, and you know, I think just like putting yourself in the situations where you're going to industry events. I know it's been hard for the past 2 years, but there's been a lot of virtual events, putting yourself in that and making, and obviously doing your work on the side to learn about ingredients if you want to work in PD. I feel like there's so many tools now to learn how products are made or learn, and people, there's more of like a window into how the process works. So if you educate yourself on the side while making the connections, I think eventually you'll get an opportunity if you're persistent and you're like, you know, doing, it's not going to be an easy road, but you know, have an intention and have goals about what you want to achieve, and you can make a way. I know it sounds very like, you know, woo woo or whatever, but I believe if you put the intention out there, you keep working on it, you put yourself in the right room, eventually something will work out.
Thanks, Mary. And we
Oh,
also
Nicole said,
have a question. Someone said, I'm actually a beauty enthusiast. At the moment, my IG and Facebook are basic, but I'd like to turn them around and get my name out there. What would you recommend? How can I get started? I watch a lot of influencers on YouTube, IG, Facebook, and would love to be that one day, to get to know wonderful people in this industry, in the beauty industry and skincare industry.
I could take that one. I would say content create. The biggest untap, like when by untap, I mean they have not made it into like a mess like Instagram was and is. I would say go on TikTok and just create content create and build a following then. Video is definitely the next thing right now. Photos are great and blogs are great and writing, but it's definitely video. That's where it's heading to. So content create, just put it out there. Just put videos, share your day, share your routine. Trust me, you are going to influence, and not even the word influence, but you are going to inspire somebody and you'll create a following. And I think picking a niche, whichever niche that is passionate to you, whether it's fitness, food, whatever it is, if you want lifestyle, but just make sure that you are connecting with brands that have that same niche and that same culture and background. So it becomes like an organic connection and not just somebody that you are connecting just, just because of the sake of it. But network and just get your content out there. TikTok is your best friend right now. Create as many videos, just put them out there. Somebody will love them and you'll create an audience, and then create that niche and you'll start creating momentum on it. But yes, that's my advice.
That's great advice. Also get on TikTok, because you don't need to have a huge following to go viral. And I feel like there's a lot of room there to grow. So before I pass it off to close out with Emily, I did want to mention again that Verse is currently hiring. You can find all of our open roles on our LinkedIn page. We are currently hiring for a director of people, director of e-commerce, e-commerce manager, retail account manager, retail coordinator, graphic designer, social media content manager, community associate, a copywriter, senior product development manager, a production manager, influencer marketing contractors, and a paid influencer and affiliate manager. So we have quite the range for anyone who is interested. Tell your friends, your family, partners, neighbors, anybody who you think may be interested. You can apply for these roles directly through Bamboo, which you will find on our LinkedIn page. And if you'd like to follow up on your application, you can also email us at careers@verseskin.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want that information again. But now back to Emily to close out our event. You're on mute, Emily. I don't know if you know that.
Unmute myself. First of all, I really want to thank all of you for this amazing insights and very rich conversation. I absolutely loved the chat and the feedback that we were getting. Again, for everyone on the call, it is our honor to have this partnership with Verse to bring you these conversations and networking opportunities with beauty professionals. But also we do have a mentorship program with Verse where we will match you with one of their employees for a 3-month mentoring session. So I did drop the link in the chat, as well as other resources that we have available to the community. Jamie, Tamari, Yesenia, Andrea, thank you for this fantastic panel conversation.
Thank you, Emily. We
Thank
couldn't have done it without you.
I love hearing everyone's backgrounds too. So like your story. I love that.
So interesting. So everybody in the chat, send them one last message and thank this fantastic panel. We look forward, to having additional conversations. So keep on the lookout for us.
Yes, and feel free to connect with all of us on LinkedIn as well. We'd love to just network and keep in touch. So again, thank you all for taking the time to, have this conversation. I think it was so important.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.